I'm Linda Thompson, 70. My husband's secretary handed me his personal effects with the same mechanical efficiency she'd shown scheduling his appointments for 24 years. The betrayal I felt staring at those keys hidden in his office safe was nothing compared to what I discovered behind that cabin door. If you were my age, would you dare unlock a secret your spouse hid through 31 years of marriage? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. It was 4 weeks after David's heart attack claimed him at 72. The funeral had come and gone, filled with potlucks from neighbors and sympathies that rang hollow in my ears. People kept saying how fortunate I'd been to share such a devoted life with him in Charlotte, North Carolina, if only they knew the questions those keys stirred in me. David Thompson had been the epitome of reliability. Our 31 years together were marked by routines that felt as solid as the oak forests surrounding our home. Every morning, he'd prepare the same breakfast oatmeal with a dash of cinnamon black coffee on the side. His ties rotated weekly, never skipping a pattern, and he'd read the newspaper front to back without deviation. At 72, he still rose at dawn, his habits a comforting rhythm in our quiet retirement. Those monthly trips to the mountains had started 9 years earlier. Every third Saturday, he'd sling his old duffel bag over his shoulder, plant a kiss on my forehead, and declare he was off to Blue Ridge Mountains for some peace and fishing. "You'd find it miserable there, Linda," he'd say, his tone gentle but unyielding. No phone signal, no plumbing comforts, just him, the river, and his reflections. I trusted him because doubting David seemed as absurd as questioning the sunrise. After all, I had my own pursuits to fill the time. My book club met weekly, where we'd dissect the latest detective dramas over tea. The garden behind our Charlotte house demanded my attention with roses that bloomed under my careful pruning. And my volunteer shifts at the local hospital brought a sense of purpose, chatting with patients and organizing supplies. Those solitary weekends were a treat. I'd indulge in ice cream for supper spread quilting fabrics across the living room without a word of complaint and lose myself in episodes of detective shows free from David's quips about implausible clues. Yet as I turned those keys over in my palm, delivered by his secretary with her usual crisp detachment, a shadow crept in. The safe in his office had held more than documents. It concealed this small, heavy reminder of places he'd forbidden me to tread. The cabin, he'd always described it as a rustic shack unfit for anyone but a lone angler. But why hide the keys? Why the secrecy wrapped in his predictable life? I recalled how the trips had stretched over 9 years, each one a brief absence I'd never probed. He'd depart at first light and return past midnight, weary but content. Thorough fishing takes time, he'd explain if I mentioned his exhaustion. It made sense. David approached everything with meticulous care, but now with him gone, those explanations felt thin. The secretary had lingered only long enough to offer condolences, her voice practiced from years of handling his schedule. As she left, I sat in our living room, the keys cold against my skin. The house felt emptier than ever, echoes of our shared routines mocking the silence. Friends had brought casseroles, potlucks stacked in the fridge, but food couldn't fill the void of unanswered questions. My mind wandered to our early days. When we met, David was already a man of habits, steady after his first marriage ended tragically young. We'd built this life in Charlotte, a city of gentle hills and familiar streets far from the dramatic peaks of Blue Ridge. No children came despite our hopes, but we'd made peace with it, or so I thought. Now these keys suggested otherwise, perhaps a hidden layer to the man I'd loved for 3 decades. Curiosity had always been my vice. David used to tease me about it during our quieter evenings. "Linda, that mind of yours never rests," he'd say with a chuckle. I'd finish every puzzle, devour mystery novels to their last page, always craving resolution. How could I ignore this? Donating his things felt like surrender, but pursuing the truth risked shattering our perfect memory. I weighed the keys, their metal edges pressing into my flesh. Part of me wanted to lock them away, preserve the image of David as the devoted husband. But the larger part, the one that solved riddles and volunteered to help others find closure, knew I couldn't. Some doors, once noticed, demand to be opened. With a deep breath, I grabbed my coat and headed for the car. The drive to Blue Ridge Mountains awaited a journey of 2 hours and 17 minutes I'd timed years ago in playful curiosity. Little did I know it would unravel everything. 7 months before David's heart attack in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I was 70 and sorting through the laundry, the memory hit me as I drove toward Blue Ridge Mountains, the road winding like a thread through my doubts. It had started innocently enough, a routine chore that uncovered the first thread to pull. I'd been folding his clothes from the latest trip, the duffel bag still carrying faint traces of the outdoors. But as I lifted his shirt, something off-registered, not the expected river scent or oak forest mustiness, but a soft blend of vanilla and lavender, like laundry softened in someone else's home. I held the fabric to my nose, inhaling deeply. The aroma lingered foreign and sweet, settling a chill in my core. David had always returned smelling of nature's raw edges, perhaps a hint of fish or damp earth. This was different, almost domestic. My mind raced to explanations, but none fit our life in Charlotte, where our routines were as predictable as the city's mild seasons. When David came home that evening, I confronted him gently, the shirt draped over my arm like evidence in one of my detective dramas. "This smells unusual," I said, keeping my tone light to avoid accusation. He glanced up from his newspaper, his weekly rotation of ties still crisp around his neck. "New bait shop in town," he replied without missing a beat, his voice steady as always. "The owner scents everything, claims it draws the fish better." It sounded plausible, logical in his thorough way. David never embellished. His explanations were straightforward, like the man himself. I nodded, pushing the unease aside, and tossed the shirt into the washer. But the chill didn't fade entirely. It simmered a quiet undercurrent in our otherwise serene retirement. Our home in Charlotte was a haven of order, garden beds, neatly tended book club notes organized on the shelf. I'd volunteer at the hospital, finding solace in helping others navigate their uncertainties, while David maintained his habits with quiet precision. A few weeks later, the second hint emerged. I was cleaning his tackle box, a rare intrusion into his fishing gear, when slips of paper fluttered out. Not receipts for lures or line, but grocery ones from a small market in Asheville near the mountains. Dozens of them stacked like secrets. The items listed were odd for a solitary angler: fresh flowers, gourmet coffee, fine cheese, bottles of wine. Nothing practical for a day by the river. My hands trembled as I scanned them, the dates aligning with his trips over the past 9 years. Flowers every month, roses, chrysanthemums, arrangements that spoke of care, not wilderness survival. Cheese that cost more than our weekly groceries, wine he'd never brought home. The chill returned deeper now, twisting into something sharper. That night over dinner, I laid the receipts on the table between us. "These don't look like fishing supplies," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. David barely looked up from his plate, his fork pausing mid-bite. "Sometimes I tire of convenience store snacks," he explained calmly. "A man deserves decent coffee and cheese now and then. The flowers for your mother's grave on the way back." It made sense again. My mother rested in Blue Ridge Cemetery, and David had always been thoughtful about such visits. I wanted to believe him. His eyes held no flicker of deceit, just the familiar warmth of our 31 years. But as I cleared the table, the receipts burned in my pocket. Flowers for 8 years straight. Devotion to my mother's memory was one thing, but this felt excessive layered. The drive to the mountains now mirrored that growing suspicion. 4 weeks after his death, the road curved through thickening forests, oaks standing sentinel like unspoken truths. I'd called the cemetery office before leaving Charlotte, my voice casual despite the knot in my stomach. "Mrs. Thompson, oh yes, your husband visited regularly. Such a kind soul, always with flowers. Though he lingered quite a bit at that other grave too." Other grave. The words hung heavy as the clerk continued. "A young woman, Rebecca Lawson, passed about 10 years ago, buried right beside my mother's plot. David brought blooms for both, month after month." The name Rebecca meant nothing to me, yet the clerk's tone implied I should know, as if any wife would understand her husband's attention to a stranger's resting place. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. The market in Asheville appeared soon after the one from those receipts. I pulled over, scanning the shelves, fresh produce, artisanal cheeses, wines that matched the slips I'd found. It was real, tangible proof that his trips held more than solitude. The cabin loomed ahead, the GPS guiding me past the cemetery and up narrower paths. Houses, thin trees crowded closer until the clearing emerged. One-story weathered wood-green roof porch with rocking chairs and a table window boxes bursting with November flowers defying the season. I parked, engine ticking in the silence, keys heavy in my hand. 10 minutes I sat there debating, turn back, preserve the memory, or step forward, risk everything curiosity won, as it always did. David had joked about it often. "Curiosity might kill the cat, Linda. Good thing I'm no cat," I'd retort. With unsteady legs, I approached the porch, the key sliding into the lock like it belonged. Present day driving 2 hours and 17 minutes to Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina at age 70. The road twisted upward oaks, crowding the edges like guardians of forgotten stories. As I navigated the curves, memories from our dating days surfaced how I'd once teased David about timing the drive, imagining I'd tag along on his fishing escapes. That was decades ago, before our life in Charlotte solidified into comfortable patterns. Now, 4 weeks after his passing, those same miles carried a weight I hadn't anticipated. The forest thickened sunlight, filtering through leaves in dappled patterns. Perhaps the cabin was exactly as he'd painted it, a simple retreat for solitude and trout. Maybe the receipts for flowers and gourmet items were innocent indulgences, the scents on his clothes a quirk of some mountain shop. But the cemetery clerk's words echoed the extra time at Rebecca Lawson's grave, the assumption that I knew why. My stomach tightened. Fresh flowers every month for 9 years went beyond honoring my mother's memory. The GPS chimed. In 200 feet, turn right. The cabin appeared in a sunlit clearing pines, framing it like a postcard. One story with weathered siding, a green metal roof that caught the light, and a porch holding 2 rocking chairs with a small table between. Window boxes overflowed with yellow chrysanthemums blooming defiantly in the crisp November air. It looked inviting, not the rough lodge I'd envisioned. I killed the engine, sitting in silence for 10 full minutes. The keys dangled from my ignition, their presence a taunt. Part of me yearned to reverse down the path back to Charlotte's familiarity, my garden book club discussions, hospital shifts, where I could focus on others' troubles. Opening this door might shatter the peace we'd built over 31 years. David had warned me often enough. Curiosity killed the cat, you know. My standard reply, good thing I'm not a cat. But I'd never shied from puzzles. With legs that felt like lead, I climbed the porch steps. The key fit the lock, smoothly turning with a soft click. The door creaked open, releasing a faint scent of lavender and polished wood. I stepped inside, and the world shifted. This wasn't a fishing shack. Soft blue walls greeted me, adorned with framed photographs that spoke of warmth and intention. The kitchen boasted cheerful yellow curtains, a vintage tablecloth draped over a wooden table. In the living area, a plush sofa and armchair coordinated perfectly, fabrics inviting touch. On the mantel, a crystal vase held those same chrysanthemums from outside, arranged with care. Fresh milk in the fridge bore yesterday's date. Sandwich fixings wouldn't expire for days. Someone maintained this place actively. My breath caught as I scanned the photos. A young woman with dark hair holding an infant, the frame inscribed Rebecca and Sophie Lawson, 2014. Rebecca Lawson, the name from the grave. But her eyes, they mirrored David's, or perhaps he mirrored hers. No, that wasn't right. The resemblance flowed from him to her. I picked up the frame, fingers trembling against the cool glass. The woman appeared around 30, her smile radiant. The baby Sophie gazed up with innocent wonder. Another photo showed an older child, perhaps 9 or 10, with that same dark hair and a chin stubborn like David's. My legs gave way. I sank onto the sofa, the cushions yielding softly. In 31 years of marriage, David had never breathed a word of a Rebecca Lawson, never hinted at a daughter from his youth, certainly not a granddaughter. Given up for adoption at 19, before we met, how had this stayed buried? The coffee table held a recent home and garden magazine beside it, a leather journal. I flipped it open, recognizing David's precise handwriting. November 15th, Sophie's school play next week. Patricia's bringing her by Saturday for costume help. She wants to be a butterfly. Rebecca would have adored seeing her so delicate, a granddaughter. I paged further pieces falling into place. Rebecca wasn't an affair. She was his child from long ago, tracked him down 9 years back. They'd forged a bond slowly, carefully. Then 4 years ago, she died, leaving Sophie, a girl who echoed David in every feature. He'd bought this cabin, furnished it for her visits, turning monthly fishing lies into grandfather time, a secret life hidden out of shame or fear. The child-sized rocking chair on the porch, art supplies, neatly stored fridge doors, papered with crayon drawings, signed Sophie, every detail screamed devotion. Why the deception? How do you confess to your wife of decades that you've harbored this from the start, that while she assumed solitary angling, you were building family ties elsewhere? I closed the journal, surveying the room anew. Love infused every corner, the coordinated fabrics, fresh flowers, a space crafted for comfort and memory. But if Sophie visited monthly until David's death, where was she now? Who cared for a 10-year-old who'd lost her only paternal figure? The fridge offered more clues, school photos, report cards. Sophie Lawson, age 10 honor roll, consistently. David had tracked it all. A folded note behind one photo caught my eye. David's script again. Linda, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you found the keys. I should have told you about Rebecca and Sophie years ago. But I feared you'd see me differently for the secrets. Rebecca was my daughter from before us. She found me 9 years back. Sophie's her girl. After Rebecca passed, Sophie went to her great-aunt Patricia in town. I've supported them, spent time here monthly. Patricia brings her to keep ties to her mother's memory and me. Forgive my delay. All my love, David. I stared at the words, a heavy ache settling. Not just the hidden family, but his fear of my judgment of disrupting our childless peace we'd accepted after years of trying. Would I have embraced them or viewed them as intrusions on our retirement? Honesty, forced admission. My initial reaction here wasn't joy, but hurt from the lie. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, an older woman with gray hair helped a young girl from a silver sedan. The woman around my age wore faded jeans and a worn cardigan. The girl, 10, perhaps had David's hair and features unmistakably. Sophie. They approached with easy familiarity, the child chattering hands, gesturing lively. Panic surged. I'd explained before deciding the door opened. Sophie bounded in, freezing at my sight. Present day inside the cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, when I'm 70, and hear a car pull up. The sound of gravel crunching snapped me from the haze of David's letter. My heart raced as I stood in the cabin's kitchen, the journal still open on the coffee table, its pages heavy with truths I hadn't yet processed. Through the window, I watched an older woman, gray hair, faded jeans, a cardigan worn thin at the elbows, help a young girl from a silver sedan. The girl, about 10, moved with lively gestures, her dark hair and sharp chin unmistakably David's. Sophie. They climbed the porch steps with the ease of regular visitors, Sophie's voice carrying through the thin walls. Grandpa David always left the door open for us. Aunt Patricia, he called this our safe place. I froze, clutching the counter's edge. Should I announce myself as the wife kept in the dark for 9 years, pretend I'd stumbled here by chance, hide until they left? Before I could decide, the door swung wide and Sophie bounded in her energy, filling the cozy space. She stopped, dead eyes wide, as they landed on me. Who are you? She asked direct, as only a child can be. Patricia appeared behind her, her gaze sharp, taking in my presence among the blue walls and yellow curtains. Sophie, come here, sweetheart, she said, voice calm but cautious. I swallowed my throat dry. I'm Linda. I managed the words sounding alien. I was David's wife. Patricia's expression softened, shifting from wariness to recognition, then something like pity. Oh, she said quietly. You found the keys. Sophie glanced between us, confusion knitting her brow. Grandpa David had a wife. He never talked about a wife. The statement stung a fresh wound atop the day's revelations. In 4 years of monthly visits, David hadn't mentioned me to this child. To her, he was just Grandpa David, wholly hers in this cabin world. Patricia knelt beside Sophie, her tone gentle. Why don't you refresh the flowers for your mama while Mrs. Thompson and I talk? Sophie nodded, skipping to the mantel where the chrysanthemums sat in their crystal vase. She lifted them with practiced care, heading to the sink, humming softly, a child at home in a space foreign to me. Patricia turned to me, lowering her voice. She doesn't know about you. David thought it'd confuse her, too many grown-ups to track. I nodded, processing. How long have you known about me? I asked. Since the start, she said. When Rebecca first found David 9 years ago, he told me he was married. Showed me your picture, spoke about your garden, your book club. He was proud of you, Linda, but terrified of what my voice cracked. Patricia glanced at Sophie, still arranging flowers, that you'd make him choose between you and them. He couldn't bear that. The truth sank deep. David had lived in 2 worlds, unable to merge them, fearing my reaction to a daughter and granddaughter I never knew. What happens to Sophie? Now I asked, my eyes on the girl, her small hands precise with the blooms. Patricia's shoulders sagged. I care for her full-time. David helped with expenses, cabin lease, gas, groceries, school supplies, clothes, about $1,000 a month. Her voice faltered, betraying unvoiced worry. But now he's gone, and so's the money. I calculated silently. $12,000 a year, a significant sum from David's retirement income, yet he'd never hinted at it in our budget talks. He'd always preached frugality, urging careful spending. Had he pinched our pennies to fund this hidden family? Patricia continued, I'm on a fixed income. Sophie's a good kid, but raising her at 76 with my resources, she trailed off exhaustion lining her eyes. Sophie returned, placing the vase back on the mantel. There, Mama, she said softly to a framed photo of Rebecca, her voice tender. Grandpa David always said you liked them just like this. The sight of Sophie, so devoted, shifted something in me. This wasn't just David's secret. It was a child's lifeline. Would you like coffee? Patricia offered, breaking the silence. I nodded, grateful for a moment to gather my thoughts. She moved through the kitchen with ease, knowing where David kept the grounds. David was a good man, she said, measuring coffee. But scared of upending your life, of asking too much. I sipped the coffee, its warmth steadying me. He should have trusted me, I said, though doubt crept in. Would I have welcomed a 10-year-old and her struggling guardian into our orderly retirement? Patricia's gaze was steady. Would you have, Robert, thought your kindness thrived on structure? A surprise family might have been like tossing a stone into calm water. Her words mirrored my own fears. My initial reaction here, anger, betrayal, suggested David might have known me better than I knew myself. Sophie sat on the sofa, engrossed in a worn book, her legs tucked under in pure childhood ease. This cabin was her haven, built for her needs, filled with memories I'd never shared. The lease runs through year's end, Patricia said carefully. After that, I can't afford it. Her Social Security couldn't cover the $1,000 monthly costs David had managed. As they prepared to leave, Sophie paused before me. Mrs. Thompson, thanks for not being mad about us. Grandpa David worried you might be. Her words so earnest pierced me. I'm not mad, I assured her, realizing it was true. I'm glad I met you. After their car faded down the mountain road, I sat alone in the dimming cabin, David's journal open to its first entry 9 years back. Rebecca brought Sophie today. Can't believe this beautiful girl's my granddaughter. She's got my stubborn chin. I hope Linda forgives me for not telling her yet. The words stung. He'd planned to tell me month after month, but fear held him back. Now the choice was mine to walk away or step into his hidden world. Present day, inside the cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, when I'm 70 and hear a car approach. The crunch of tires on gravel jolted me from David's letter, its words still echoing in my mind. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, the journal splayed open on the coffee table like an unfinished confession. Outside, an older woman with gray hair eased a young girl from a silver sedan. She wore jeans faded from wear and a cardigan that spoke of practical days. The girl, perhaps 10, chattered with animated hands, her dark locks and determined features a mirror of David's Sophie. They moved toward the porch with the casual stride of those who belonged here. Sophie's voice clear through the walls. Grandpa David always kept the door unlocked for us, Aunt Patricia. He said this was our safe spot where no one could bother us. Panic welled up. What now? Reveal myself as the unaware wife. Feign a coincidental visit. Slip into hiding. Before I could act, the door opened and Sophie dashed inside her energy, halting abruptly at my sight. Who are you? She demanded, her tone bold and unfiltered as children often are. Patricia stepped in behind her eyes, scanning the scene, blue walls, yellow curtains, me standing awkwardly with quick assessment. Sophie, over here, honey, she said, her voice steady but protective. I cleared my throat words, tumbling out strangely. I'm Linda. I was David's wife. Patricia's face shifted from caution to comprehension, then a gentle sorrow. Ah, she murmured. You discovered the keys. Sophie looked back and forth, puzzled. Grandpa David had a wife, he never mentioned one. The revelation landed like a blow. In 4 years of these visits, David had omitted me entirely from Sophie's world. To her, he was simply Grandpa, devoted and solitary in this haven. Patricia guided Sophie softly. Go tend to your mama's flowers while Mrs. Thompson and I chat. Sophie agreed without fuss, heading to the mantel where the chrysanthemums gleamed in their vase. She handled them with familiar grace, carrying them to the sink, her hum filling the air, a melody of comfort in this unfamiliar space for me. Patricia leaned closer, her words hushed. She doesn't know of you. David figured it'd muddle things for her too many adults to sort out. I absorbed that, then asked, how long have you known about me? From the beginning, she replied. When Rebecca contacted him 9 years ago, he shared he was married, showed your photo, talked of your garden and book club. He admired you, Linda, but the fear gripped him, fear of what I pressed my voice trembling. Patricia eyed Sophie at the sink, of forcing a choice on you, between your life together and this one. He couldn't face losing either. The insight settled heavily. David had straddled two realities, too afraid to blend them, dreading my potential rejection of complications in our childless retirement. And Sophie, now I glanced at the girl, her small fingers arranging petals with care. Patricia's expression grew weary. I handle her day to day. David covered costs: cabin, lease, travel, gas, food, school items, clothes, around $1,000 monthly. Her pause hinted at deeper strain. But with him gone, that support vanishes. I did the math inwardly, $12,000 yearly siphoned quietly from our funds. David had advocated thrift in our talks, yet here was the reason generosity hidden to shield me. Patricia added, my fixed income stretches thin. Sophie's wonderful, but at 76, with a child's demands, fatigue etched her features, unspoken burdens clear. Sophie returned vase in hand, placing it precisely on the mantel. There, Mama, she whispered to Rebecca's framed photo, her devotion, quiet and profound. Watching her, a shift occurred within me. This wasn't mere deception. It was a child's anchor amid loss. Coffee, Patricia suggested, easing the tension. I accepted the brew's aroma grounding as she prepared it with habitual motions. David was decent, she said, pouring, but frightened, afraid of disrupting your plans, of burdening you. I cradled the cup. He should have trusted me, I replied, though uncertainty lingered. Would I have opened our Charlotte home to this? Patricia's look was probing. Should he said, your compassion rooted in order. A sudden family might ripple that calm. Her observation mirrored my reflections. My first impulse here had been resentment, not embrace. David might have gauged me accurately. Sophie lounged on the sofa, absorbed in her book legs, curled in effortless comfort. This place was hers, every nook tailored to her art supplies, child-sized chair on the porch. Lease ends this year, Patricia noted. Can't keep it after. Her resources couldn't sustain the $1,000 monthly outlay David had managed. As they readied to depart, Sophie stood before me. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for not being upset about us. Grandpa David seemed worried you might. Her candor touched me deeply. I'm not upset, I said truthfully, and I'm pleased to meet you. Their car receded down the path, leaving me in the fading light. I reopened the journal to an early entry, 9 years old. Rebecca introduced Sophie today. This granddaughter is a wonder with my chin. Hope Linda forgives the silence. I'll tell her soon. He'd intended to entry after entry, but hesitation won. Now the decision rested with me to retreat or extend the bridge he'd feared to build. Present day, after discovering the cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, when I'm 70 and call Patricia. The drive back to Charlotte stretched long, my thoughts swirling like the mountain roads I'd left behind. David's letter and journal weighed on me, their revelations, reshaping his final years from peaceful retirement to a delicate balance of secrets. Instead of the quiet life we'd shared, he'd managed an emotional tightrope, exhausting himself to protect us all. By the time I reached home, a resolve had formed. But first, I needed clarity on the full picture. That evening, I spread David's financial records across the kitchen table in our Charlotte house. With fresh eyes, the monthly withdrawals once dismissed as fishing expenses now clicked into place. $1,000 each time, like clockwork, sometimes more, for extras like school clothes or cabin repairs. Like over 4 years since Rebecca's death, it totaled around $12,000 annually. He'd drawn from his personal account, never touching our joint funds, ensuring his generosity didn't impact our lifestyle. The man I'd sometimes seen as growing stingy in age had been profoundly giving, supporting a family I never knew. Our budget discussions replayed in my mind, his insistence on caution, on saving for uncertainties. All to fund this hidden commitment without burdening me. The next morning, I dialed Patricia. Linda, is something wrong? Her voice carried the weariness I'd seen at the cabin. I've been reflecting on our talk, I said. The cabin, Sophie, what comes next? Silence lingered. David left a solid life insurance policy. I believe he'd want part of it to keep supporting Sophie. Linda, you owe us nothing. David's setup was his choice. You weren't involved. Maybe not at first, but I am now. I took a breath. I'd like to assume the cabin lease and maintain the monthly aid he provided if that suits you. The line went quiet so long I thought it dropped. Patricia, I'm here, she said, emotion thickening her words. Are you certain? This is no small promise. I know enough, I replied. David cherished Sophie enough to reshape his world for her. You've cared for her with endless patience on limited means. She merits stability, especially after this loss. What about the visits Sophie treasures coming here monthly? It ties her to her mother and David. I'd like to sustain those too and join sometimes if you're open. Another pause. Sophie would enjoy that. She chattered about you the whole drive home. The call warmed me. Sophie's impression lingered as strongly as mine of her. We hashed out details over days I'd cover the $1,000 monthly for lease and needs. Patricia and Sophie would continue visits. I'd participate when able. We'd assess how it fit everyone. But first, something David should have done years ago. The following Saturday, I drove to Blue Ridge Mountains, laden with supplies, art materials, books, games suited for a 10-year-old. I'd shopped blindly, but figured we'd learn preferences together. I also packed photo albums, David, young our wedding holidays over decades. If Sophie joined our story, she deserved the full view. They were on the porch when I arrived, rocking in the chairs. Sophie leaped up, eyes bright. Mrs. Thompson, Aunt Patricia said you might visit, but I wasn't sure. I meant it, I said. She nodded gravely. Grown-ups sometimes promise things they don't follow through on, especially with kids. Her pragmatism tugged at me. This child had learned wariness too young. Over the hour, I shared photos of David's toothless grin at 10 with a caught fish, our wedding, where he fumbled vows. Sophie giggled at his nervousness. Were you sad no children came? She asked bluntly. Yes, we wanted them dearly, she pondered. But if you had, Grandpa David might not have had space for me. Her logic stunned my childlessness. A sorrow for years became a gift in her eyes, clearing room for their bond. As the day unfolded, the cabin's rhythm soothed. No rush, just company. Sophie proved engaging, curious, thoughtful, self-sufficient. When she napped, Patricia and I sipped coffee on the porch oaks, whispering in the breeze. She'll be fine, Patricia said. I feared she'd withdraw after David, but she's tough. She has you, I noted. Us now, she corrected. If you're committed, I am. We sat in easy, quiet, two women linked by David's hidden world, forging how to honor it. Later, Sophie asked a question that clenched my gut. Will you keep coming forever or just till you tire of us? Her casual tone masked deep fear. What prompts that, dear? She shrugged. Adults change minds when kids get tough. I met her gaze. Those are heavy worries for someone so young. I'm 10 3/4, she corrected. Patricia watched familiar with this. You're right, grown up enough for truth. I can't vow no changes ever, but I promise I'll never leave you like others might. If needed, I'll ensure your care. How her directness pushed me to confront realities. I'm consulting lawyers to protect you and Patricia no matter what. Sophie studied me, then nodded. Okay, but can we make it official? Be my real grandmother. The plea hit hard. She sought legal ties unbreakable by whims. That's big, I said. It'd mean possibly living with me full-time, school doctors, all that. Would that be bad? Not bad, just different from my quiet life. Grandpa David said, you're brave that you handle anything once decided. Hearing his faith through her warmed me. Sophie added, he said, you've a big heart, but guard it wisely. Once you love, it's forever. David had prepared her subtly. The idea took root. Legal co-guardianship, not to supplant Patricia, but as safeguard. That evening alone in the cabin, David's journal entry on Sophie's maturity fueled my choice. He'd worried for her future, her losses. I couldn't let her face more uncertainty. Back in Charlotte, I phoned my lawyer. I want to explore becoming Sophie's legal co-guardian. The process loomed, checks, studies, assessments, but Sophie deserved permanence. David's legacy wasn't deceit, it was love that rearranged lives. Now mine would too. 3 months into the guardianship process in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I'm 70 and receive an urgent call. The phone's ring shattered the quiet morning in our Charlotte home, now alive with Sophie's presence during our trial visits. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. Helen, it's me. I'm at the hospital. My blood chilled. What happened? Are you all right? Chest pains this morning? Sophie dialed emergency. Doctors suspect a mild heart attack. Oh no. How's Sophie? Where is she? With me, but she's scared, stiff, asking if strangers will take her now. I snatched my keys. I'm coming. The drive to Asheville felt endless, my mind churning worst cases. What if Patricia's health was graver? What if Sophie faced temporary placement before I intervened? At the hospital, Sophie sat in a stiff chair looking smaller than her 10 years knees drawn up. She flung herself into my arms upon seeing me. Grandma Linda, Aunt Patricia's heart broke. Doctors are fixing it, but what if they can't? I held her tight. She'll be okay, sweetheart. They're caring for her well. But what if she goes like, Mama, what if I have to leave again? Her terror raw and deep gripped me. Listen, you're not going anywhere. No strangers, no matter what. But the papers aren't done. The social worker said more time. Observant child, she grasped the fragility. Remember my promise, I'll never abandon you. She nodded into my shoulder, her stuffed rabbit clutched like a lifeline. Over days, Patricia's condition clarified mild attack, but underlying heart disease severe, needing lifestyle shifts and monitoring. From her bed, she insisted, I can still manage Sophie, just a scare. But Sophie, quiet in the corner, wore the look of bracing for another goodbye. The cardiologist pulled me aside. At 76, with this full-time childcare isn't wise. She needs rest, less strain. That evening, we talked Patricia, Sophie, and I. We must speed the guardianship, I said. Sophie needs certainty. You need health focus. Patricia looked torn, relieved, yet guilty. I hate burdening you. It's no burden. It's what David intended. Sophie, subdued, finally spoke. Does this mean moving to Charlotte now before court says okay? The social worker expediting our case outlined options: emergency temporary guardianship due to health crisis, quick home study placement hearing in 2 weeks. I met Sophie's eyes, her intensity belying her age. How do you feel about living with me sooner? She waited. Can I visit Aunt Patricia in hospital daily if you wish? And the cabin stays. And if the judge says no permanent, no foster care, my word, you'll never go there. I'll fight till the end. She nodded solemnly. Okay, I'd like that now. 2 days later, I watched Sophie pack her world fitting into 3 black trash bags and a box. Is this all I asked? Stunned. Don't have much, she said plainly. Mama said people matter more than stuff. As we loaded the car, Patricia drew me aside. Things about Sophie, nightmares, sometimes fears, thunderstorms, talks to her mother when upset. Tell me all. She's mature, but tests boundaries, pushes to check if you'll stay. Build support around you both. The drive home was hushed. Sophie clutched her rabbit, staring out at passing oaks. Grandma Linda, yes. Are you scared? Honesty deserved honesty. A bit. You, a bit too. Normal for new families figuring things out. Aunt Patricia says scared and brave can be the same. She's wise. Pulling into Charlotte's driveway, Sophie eyed the house. Bigger than I thought. Good or bad, good room for us without crowding. That first night, tucking her into the spare room's hasty bed, she asked, do you think Grandpa David's happy about this? Thinking of his visits, provisions, I believe he planned it knowing we'd need each other. She smiled faintly. Me too. As her breathing steadied, I realized my predictable retirement had ended. Tomorrow began raising David's granddaughter energy and patience untested at 70. But Sophie was right, scared and brave, intertwined. Tonight, I embodied both. 6 months on challenges emerged, Sophie's panic when I delayed school, pick up her barricade after discipline, screams from lost nightmares. Yet joys bloomed, cooking family recipes, nightly reads, her growing trust that my love endured mistakes. Patricia, recovering, visited often school pickups, twice weekly Sunday afternoons, easing the shift. The cabin remained our monthly anchor, connecting to David and Rebecca's space for grief and bonds. And Parta, as court neared stability, revealed itself, not flawless, but real. 6 months after Sophie moved in at the family court in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I'm 70. We stood in the courtroom where this path began, Sophie's hand firm in mine, her blue dress with tiny flowers, a symbol of her quiet hope. 6 months had reshaped us, a blend of trials and triumphs that tested my resolve at 70. The guardianship process loomed like a mountain paperwork, a constant companion, financial statements, medical histories, background verifications, references from those who could affirm my steadiness. I gathered 6 such voices. My doctor, Patricia Williams, who'd supported me post David's death, provided a health endorsement after a thorough check. At 70, this is ambitious, she'd said, but confirmed my fitness. Ellen from Book Club offered a character note, surprised yet approving. You've thought this through, she asked. Not fully, I admitted, but I'm dedicated. The social worker, Sarah Chen, young but compassionate, had interviewed us extensively. Unusual case, she noted. Most guardians know the child longer. I spoke from the heart. Sophie's my husband's granddaughter. She's lost enough. I can offer permanence. Reports from Sophie's school counselor and my medical team painted a picture of adaptation, her thriving my commitment. Challenges marked those months. Sophie's first panic when I ran late from a hospital, shift her barricade in her room after I set a rule on bedtime. A nightmare wakened her, screaming, reliving losses. But joys countered teaching, her recipes at the kitchen table, evening reads where her laughter filled the house, her trust blooming as she saw my love wasn't conditional. Patricia, following doctor's orders for reduced stress, became our steady support school pickups twice, weekly Sunday visits easing the load. The cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains remained our retreat monthly escapes to share grief and stories, connecting us to David and Rebecca. Now, Judge Patterson addressed us. Mrs. Thompson reports from Mrs. Chen, the counselor and your team are reviewed. How have these 6 months gone, challenging yet fulfilling your honor? We've become family. Sophie straightened. Emma, 6 months with Mrs. Thompson. How do you feel about permanence? Safe and happy. Grandma Linda keeps promises, loves me, even with mistakes. The judge smiled. Sounds solid. My lawyer presented documents, a will naming Sophie Beneficiary Education Trust for her future backup provisions with Patricia if my health faltered. These show deep commitment, he said. Judge Patterson examined them. Evident adaptation. Sophie, you seem secure and growing. Mrs. Thompson, your dedication stands out. Sophie squeezed my hand tighter as the judge continued. I grant permanent guardianship. Mrs. Thompson is now your legal guardian. Sophie squealed, hugging me fiercely, nearly toppling me. Patricia behind us wept with relief. Outside, Sophie tugged my sleeve. Can we go to the cabin? Tell them it's official. Of course. They should know the plan succeeded. What plan? I pondered the chain David's visits provisions, his passing, unveiling this. Had he foreseen I'd step in for Patricia, I think Grandpa David knew families form unexpectedly. He trusted I'd choose you if needed. Sophie mulled it. Think he knew we'd love each other, he hoped. At the cabin that afternoon, Sophie rushed to the mantle photos. Mama, Grandpa, David, guess what? Grandma Linda's my real grandmother forever. I watched from the doorway, marveling at her ease with loss and love. Patricia joined me. You've given her what I couldn't. What's that knowing she'll never be alone? Evening found us on the porch, sunset gilding the oaks in gold and pink. Sophie asked, ever wish your life stayed quiet? I recalled my old routines, garden solitude, bookclub.com. Then Sophie's echoes in the house, her homework sprawled her breaths, assuring safety nightly. A year ago, I thought so. But love makes things louder, messier, better, bad, the best ever. She curled in her chair rabbit in lap. Glad Grandpa David's secret united us. Me too, dear. As stars emerged, David's gift clarified 8 years of grandfather love for Sophie, a chance for me to expand my heart. His secrecy pained, complicated, but birthed my greatest blessing. 1 year after first opening the cabin door in Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, when I'm 70 and reflect back, the porch overlooked oaks, bathed in sunset, hues gold and pink weaving through branches like threads of memory. Sophie rocked beside me, her stuffed rabbit nestled in her lap, a constant since the move. Grandma Linda, she said sleepily, I love you forever. I love you forever too, I replied the words, sealing a bond forged from unexpected paths. A year had passed since those keys led me here, expecting betrayal but finding family. David's deception, once a wound, now revealed as a bridge, his 8 years of hidden love for Sophie, becoming my second chance at nurturing. The cabin stood as testament, its blue walls and yellow curtains, a haven we returned to monthly sharing stories of Rebecca and David amid the oaks. Sophie's question earlier lingered, ever wish life stayed quiet and predictable? I'd thought of my former days garden tending in solitude, book club debates over detective tales, hospital shifts offering structure. No echoes of laughter in halls, no homework scattered on tables, no nighttime breaths confirming safety. A year ago, yes, I'd told her. But love turns everything louder, messier, more alive. It's the finest change I've known. She'd curled tighter content. Glad Grandpa David's secret brought us together, me too. As stars dotted the sky, David's gift crystallized. For Sophie, years of grandfather warmth and security. For me, discovery that my heart held room for more than I'd imagined. His secrecy complicated, pained, but ultimately blessed. Patricia joined often, her health steadied our trio, a blended unit. The guardianship sealed 6 months back ensured Sophie's permanence, no more fears of loss or strangers. We'd navigated the process's rigors, interviews, probing my age plans like the will and trust, safeguarding her future. Challenges tested us, panics, barriers, nightmares, but triumphs prevailed, her confidence blooming in our Charlotte home. Now this retreat connected past and present photos on the mantle, whispering of lives intertwined. David had rearranged his world for Sophie. I'd done the same, finding joy in the chaos. The sunset faded, leaving stars to watch over the cabin, a symbol of how families emerge from shadows. David's hidden world taught me that love often hides in complications, waiting for courage to reveal it. Secrets can wound, but they can also gift second chances mine to embrace grandmotherhood at 70 Sophies to find lasting security. Have you uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear how it shaped you. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of quiet strength and unexpected bonds.